Hello folks, today's topic is drive-through hazards and how to avoid them. In preparation for this safety briefing, I studied 173 drive-through incidents, but I'm going to focus most of my time on 35 of the incidents that fit a certain type of hazard that I'm going to call the crushing hazard. When I say drive-through, I'm talking about any business that has a drive-through service. Some examples would include fast food restaurants, drive-through banks, drive-through ATMs, drive-through pharmacies, car washes, parking lots that have drive-through ticket booths, and so on. Just like there are many different types of drive-throughs, there are also many types of safety and security incidents that occur inside drive-throughs, such as robberies, assaults, threats to the service employees, vehicle accidents, hit and runs, and much more. However, I want to focus on what I believe to be the most dangerous potential that could affect you or a family member while inside the drive-thru, and that is being crushed to death by your vehicle. At all drive-thru locations, you would normally make some type of transaction through the window of your car. You use cash or a credit card, and you are given something in return, like food at a fast food restaurant, or a parking ticket at a parking garage, medication at a drive-through pharmacy, and money at an ATM, and so on. The potential hazard occurs when you or the service employee accidentally drops something on the ground, like your money or credit card, during the transaction. What happens next can kill you or leave you seriously injured. Occasionally, a driver will open the car door and lean out of the car to pick up some dropped item. When they lean over, especially if they're reaching out far from the vehicle, their foot is lifted off the brake, causing the car to move forward, or they accidentally put their foot on the gas pedal. As the car moves forward, the open door can come into contact with anything protruding from the building, such as a metal bollard or a service window, which sometimes extends beyond the building structure, or the door can come into contact with the ticket machine, if in a parking lot, or a bollard around the ticket machine. When the door hits the protruding object, the door closes on the driver, pinning them between the door and the door frame of the vehicle. In many cases, the car's forward motion applies continuous pressure on the door, crushing the driver to death. Although these incidents are somewhat rare, they are extremely deadly and easy to replicate. Therefore, I wanted to make you aware of this potential hazard. According to my research, 61% of the drivers who were involved in these types of accidents died as a result of their injuries, and another 7% were seriously injured. These statistics illustrate just how dangerous the crushing hazard can be for unaware drivers. You can see from this graph that the majority of these accidents happened at fast food restaurants, followed by a much lower number of incidents at banks and ATMs and parking lot drive-thrus. I also have one incident listed as a residence, which I will talk about later. And I realize that residence is a little bit off topic, but I wanted to just warn you that a similar crushing type event can happen at your residence, and I'll talk about that later. The most common crushing hazard occurs when a driver or service employee drops something and the driver attempts to pick them up. When we look at what caused the driver to open their door, we see that in 51% of these incidents, the driver opened the door to pick up dropped items. In 14% of the incidents, the driver's vehicle was too far from the service window. In 3% of the incidents, the driver's window was inoperable, and in another 3% of cases, the driver experienced vehicle trouble. Safety tip number 1. Be aware and focus on safety while inside a drive-thru. You're going to hear me say this in many of my briefings. When I identify a potentially dangerous location or dangerous activity and provide you with a security briefing on it, I expect you to identify when you're in that dangerous place or when you are participating in that dangerous activity and immediately go into defensive mode, like a mama bear protecting her cubs kind of mode. Turn off the radio and any other distractions. You need to be able to hear what is going on inside and outside your vehicle. I want you to become acutely aware of your surroundings and focus on safety and security until you're in a safe location. So as you enter any drive-thru, you need to be aware and in defensive mode. I also want you to identify the potential hazards when inside a drive-thru. For example, large bollards in the drive-thru. Bollards are steel poles that are either bolted to the concrete or set in the concrete, and they vary in size from a few inches to about 15 inches. They are usually painted yellow and are located before and after the service window. If you're at an ATM, they might be located before and after the ATM. In a parking lot, they would be located before and after the ticket machine. These bollards are installed to protect the business facade or equipment. They're not there to protect you. Like the service window at a fast food restaurant, the ATM machine or ticket machine at the entrance to a parking lot, these bollards are designed to protect equipment and building. Depending on their size and location, bollards can pose a threat to you or other passengers sitting on the driver's side of your vehicle. If you make the mistake of opening your door and trying to retrieve a dropped item and inadvertently cause your vehicle to move forward and come into contact with a bollard while you're still hanging out the door, because you can be crushed to death. In addition to bollards, there are service windows that protrude from the building and other structural outcroppings of the building that can also pose a threat, just like the bollards, but only if you attempt to open your door and retrieve dropped items. Or if you exit your vehicle for some reason, you can also be in grave danger. Based on our research, we learned that exiting your vehicle while inside a drive-thru can also result in death or serious injury. You can be crushed between your vehicle and the building, or between your vehicle and a bollard, or between your vehicle and another vehicle. There are also other dangers that can hurt you if you exit your vehicle. I'll be going over those as well. Children's safety. If you have children in the car, you want to make sure you lock all the doors and keep the windows rolled up. Adjust your rearview mirror so you can keep a close eye on the kids. Never allow your children to exit the vehicle while inside the drive-thru. Larger vehicles cannot see small children walking in front of their vehicle, and therefore children run the risk of being run over by another customer. They can also be in grave danger if they attempt to open their door and retrieve dropped items in the same manner that the driver would fall victim to the crushing type hazard. In March of 2022, a grandmother who was visiting her granddaughter in Philadelphia was parallel parking her vehicle in front of her daughter's house when her 3-year-old granddaughter ran over and attempted to open the rear passenger door while the vehicle was still moving. The grandmother didn't see her granddaughter or hear the door open and continued to back up the vehicle. Tragically, the little girl was pinned between the open car door and a tree located near the curb. The little girl died from her injuries. In September 2018, a 20-year-old man pulled up to the service window of a fast food restaurant in St. Louis to pick up his food, but his vehicle was too far from the window, so he opened his door and leaned out of the car to reach the food. Still too far, he put his car into reverse and hit the gas pedal, sending his car speeding backwards, pinning him between his car door and a tree that was located next to the drive-thru. He was pronounced dead at the hospital. Let's look at the most common scenarios of the crushing hazard. This illustration shows a car pulling up to a fast food drive-thru, but the car is too far from the service window. So the driver has to get out and walk over to the service window. There are many different reasons drivers exit their vehicles while inside a drive-thru. Our research shows that some drivers exit their vehicles to retrieve dropped items, which is the most common reason. Some exit the vehicles because they're having car problems and they want to get out and check the engine. Others, like the driver in this illustration, is just too far from the service window and therefore she chose to exit her vehicle. Some drivers have inoperable windows and therefore have to exit their vehicles. And we had one incident where the driver exited her vehicle to grab some condiments located up on a shelf. In 8 of our incidents, the drivers forgot to put their vehicles in park. The driver noticed the car moving and then runs back to the vehicle and attempts to stop the vehicle from moving forward. In some of these cases, the driver is not fully inside the vehicle and is then dragged by the vehicle and crushed by anything in the vehicle's path. These types of accidents are very deadly. The last slide shows a driver being pinned between his car and the side of the building. His car was not in park, and he left his wheels slightly turned to the left. When he attempted to get back into his car, it was too late. The second crushing scenario is when the driver is crushed between the vehicle's door and door frame. Here, the driver pulls up to the service window. Unfortunately, he dropped his money and it fell to the ground. The driver opens the car, leans out, and attempts to pick up the money. As the driver leans out away from the vehicle, his foot comes off the brake and his vehicle moves forward, crushing the driver's head between the door and the door frame. In this example, the door is forced shut by the bollard, but any solid protruding object from the building would have the same effect. In January 2021, a 23-year-old woman was exiting a parking garage in Columbus, Ohio. When she went to pay for the parking, she dropped her credit card. She opened her door and reached down to pick up her card and accidentally hit the gas pedal. The car collided with the ticket machine, pinning the woman's head between the car door and the door frame. The woman was pronounced dead at the scene. The third crushing scenario is when a driver is in the same scenario picking up dropped items. But in this example, the vehicle comes into contact with the building because the vehicle tires are turned slightly to the left. The side of the building is what applies pressure on the door, crushing the driver. It's important to know that there doesn't have to be any bollards or protrusions from the building, although they would pose a greater threat. You can still be crushed to death even when there are no protruding objects. The fourth and last scenario is when the vehicle is in reverse. Now, these are far and few between, but they do happen. But in this case, the driver reverses his vehicle to pick up dropped items. The driver is crushed between the vehicle door and the bollard. Safety tip number 2, avoid dropping credit cards, money, or food. The number one safest way to avoid dropping anything inside a fast food drive-thru and potentially being involved in a dangerous, crushing type of accident is by using the business's mobile application. I want to say that I do not work for anybody other than myself, and nobody is paying me or providing me with anything of value in exchange for my recommending the use of these mobile business applications. The mobile app is simply a much safer way of doing business. It's a no-brainer. You download the app to your phone, you order your food and pay for the food via your telephone. Then you designate where you want to receive the food, either in the drive-thru or at the curbside pickup. Curbside pickup is the safest method. You can't drop your credit card or money because you're paying with the app on your phone while sitting in your car. To use the application, you have to provide your credit card information one time. After that, your credit card will be charged by the fast food establishment each time you visit. The major fast food chains are moving to the mobile app. If your local restaurant doesn't have it now, it's only a matter of time because it's a faster food delivery method for the restaurant and increases their revenue. For you, it's much safer. What if you don't have the app or don't want to use the app? Then Position your vehicle close to the service window. This will allow the easy transfer of money and food and hopefully prevent you from opening the door. After pulling up to the service window, straighten your tires or slightly turn your wheels to the right. Turning your front wheels slightly away from the building will prevent you from stepping on the gas and hitting the side of the building. 31% of the accidents resulted in the driver moving forward and running into the side of the building with no bollards, compared to 25% of the accidents that hit bollards. It was the side of the building pressing on the open door, crushing the driver. I believe this happened because they left their tires slightly turned to the left when they turned their wheel to the left to be close to the service window. I hope that's not confusing. Or it could have been when they bent down to pick up something that they had dropped, they moved the wheel to the left as they leaned out the door. Therefore, I recommend that you slightly turn your wheels to the right as you stop in front of the service window. You want to be as close to the service window as possible to facilitate the transfer of money and or food with your wheels turned slightly to the right. So now, if you're in front of the service window, grasp your credit card firmly, because this is what is routinely dropped, and extend your arm into the service window. This way, if you drop your card or the employee drops the card, it is transferred from your hand to theirs. It falls on the service window countertop and not on the ground. If you have any physical limitations that make it difficult to handle small items, consider using a cup to make the transfer, especially when paying in cash. Keep a see-through plastic cup in your vehicle. Put your cash into the cup and hand it to the service window employee. Your cup will be returned with your change inside of it. If you or the service employee drops something onto the ground, do not open your door and attempt to pick it up. Do not exit your vehicle and attempt to pick it up. Ask the employee to send somebody to pick up whatever was dropped. If it's food, the restaurant must replace any food that hits the ground. If it's money or your credit card, let the restaurant employee coordinate retrieving the item for you. As part of my research, I interviewed managers of drive-thru restaurants, drive-thru banks, and parking lots. I estimate about 30 to 40% of fast food restaurants have safety procedures in place to pick up dropped items. And those businesses that have a procedure do it very safely. If the service employee instructs you to open your door and pick up the dropped item, tell them that you will park and then return to retrieve the items when it is safe to do so. None of the banks that I spoke to had any existing procedures in place, but they were interested in the subject and very cooperative. And this may be due to a much lower volume of drive-thru customers compared to drive-thru restaurants. In my research, only 17% of the accidents occurred at a bank or ATM. Safety tip number 3. Never open your door or exit your vehicle to retrieve dropped items. Occasionally, a customer will pull up to the service window and find that their vehicle is too far away from the service window to make the transaction, or too far from a ticket machine to grab a ticket. In this study, 28% of the incidents occurred after the customer exited their vehicle. If you find yourself too far from the service window, you can do one of two things. First, if there are no vehicles behind you, you can back up and then pull forward closer to the service window. If there are vehicles behind you, ask the service employee if you can pull forward and then complete the transaction, or park and go inside to complete the transaction. If your passenger window is inoperable, use the fast food app and designate curbside pickup, or go inside the restaurant to order, pay, and pick up your food. Do not go through the drive-thru and attempt to exit your vehicle. If you have a mechanical problem with your vehicle, do not exit your vehicle and attempt to fix your vehicle inside the drive-thru. People have been crushed that have done this. Inform the service employee that you are having mechanical problems and cannot move your vehicle. Ask them to help. They can push you forward to a location where it is safe to exit your vehicle and deal with the problem. Safety tip number 4, parking garage drive-thrus. Now, parking lots are different from fast food restaurants because they don't have people right there at the parking lot entrance that can assist you like a restaurant. If you drop something during the transaction, whether you're entering or exiting the parking lot, push the call button and inform them that you've dropped something and need help. Follow their guidance if you feel it's safe, or ask them to raise the drop arm so that you can enter the parking lot, park somewhere safe, and then retrieve your ticket when it is safe to do so. Some parking lots take a picture of your license when you enter the parking lot and do not require you to have the ticket when you exit. However, they may charge you extra for losing the ticket if you can't retrieve it. If there is a parking attendant at the entrance or exit, you should ask for their assistance in retrieving any dropped items. I realize that at a parking structure, you might not be able to get any assistance whatsoever. Therefore, when all else fails and you need to open your door, follow these instructions. Number 1, turn off all accessories, such as your radio. Number 2, engage your emergency brake. Number 3, put your vehicle in park. Number 4, turn off the engine switch. Number 5, open your door and retrieve your dropped items. Safety tip number 5, how to avoid drive-thru rage. As I mentioned earlier, during my research, I came across many different types of crimes, minor accidents and serious accidents, such as pedestrians being run over in the drive-thru, resulting in death or serious injury. There was an organized crime assassination in a drive-thru. Some organized crime group was surveilling the head of a rival crime boss and discovered that once a week on that same day, he picked up his favorite hamburger at a nearby fast food drive-thru. So they waited for him to show up, and when he did, the victim was boxed in, so the bad guys just walked up to the car and shot him in the head. I also came across a gang murder that took place exactly in the same manner. There are also many armed robberies at the service window. These criminals come from outside of the drive-thru, like a nearby parking lot, and they run up to the service window, put a gun through the window or a knife, and demand money. There were also many fast food customers who harangued and or assaulted restaurant employees at the service window. Some customers tried climbing through the window and assaulting the employees. There were also fights that break out over drivers that tried to cut into the drive-thru line. Let's avoid drive-thru rage. Do not cut in on the drive-thru line, because this often leads to verbal confrontations and fighting between customers, and some of these fights end with somebody getting killed or seriously injured. If someone cuts in front of you, just take a deep breath, turn on some good music, and relax. Or, even better, go to my YouTube channel and watch all my safety videos. It's just not worth risking your life over. Avoid arguing with other drivers and the service employees. Service employees have had animals thrown at them. I don't know if you saw that recently in Florida. Some disgruntled customer threw an alligator into the fast food restaurant via the drive-thru service window. Service employees are often threatened. They've had guns and knives shoved in their faces during robberies, and they are frequently yelled at and sometimes assaulted. When you reach the service window, please be kind to the employees. When you're inside the drive-thru, leave about 6 to 8 feet between your car and the one in front of you. This way, if something happens and you feel unsafe, that extra space between the cars will allow you to get out of the drive-through line and drive to a safe area. You can always come back after the danger has passed. Safety tip number 6. This is for owners and managers of businesses with drive-through services. Managers of drive-through businesses should develop safety procedures and train their personnel on how to carry them out. The safety procedures should address at a minimum the following scenarios. 1. If a customer drops something on the ground inside the drive-through, how do you handle it? 2. If a customer is too far from the window to make a transaction. 3. If a customer's vehicle breaks down in the drive-through, what do you do? 4. If a customer exits their vehicle while in the drive-through, how do you respond? Number 5. If a customer rear ends another customer in the drive-through, how do you handle that? Number 6. If customers start arguing or fighting in the drive-through, what's the procedure? These safety procedures don't really cost anything to write up and train your employees, but they could save someone's life if implemented. Customer safety is the first priority. Procedures should never allow customers to open their car door and exit their vehicles for any reason unless instructed to do so by the business employees or emergency responders. Business managers should install warning signs in the drive-through area. For example, the sign could say, "Danger, never open your door or exit your vehicle while inside the drive-through." Folks, earlier in the briefing I had mentioned that this crushing type of hazard could also happen at your residence. It seemed to me to be a little off topic because I was really focused on drive-through businesses. But because it's so dangerous, I just wanted to make you aware that this could happen at your residence if you have a driveway that has like a retaining wall, a large retaining wall that runs along it, or a fence line that runs along the driveway. And you might do the same thing where you're getting out of your car, or you drop something out of your car and you open the door and you hit the gas pedal and you go up against the retaining wall or fence. You can experience the same type of crushing incident. Or if you jump out of your car to open the gate and you forget to put it in park, your vehicle in park, and it moves forward, pinning you between the gate and the car. There have been a number of incidents like that, and maybe at some later point I'll do a security briefing on those types of crushing incidents that occurred just at people's homes. There was an incident where a man was getting something out of his mailbox. He dropped some of the letters. He opened the door, bent down, foot came off the brake, the car went forward, up against the fence, crushed his head between the door frame and the door. It happened exactly like it happens at a fast food type restaurant. So it does happen. I just want to make you aware of it without going into a lot of detail. Folks, please share this safety video with your family and friends. And if you like these types of safety briefings, please click on the like button and also subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching.